So, I did in fact say that my next video would be the official start of me summarizing Pathfinder's Quest. It would be a start to my Pathfinder's Quest videos. These are dedicated to Pathfinder's Quest with some lovely background footage. And that's still true today. This video will be about Pathfinder's Quest. So if you haven't read it yet and want to, then I highly recommend you stop watching this video right now. If you want to avoid spoilers that are involving Pathfinder's Quest, then I still suggest you click off this video. This video will be me giving my opinions on the book as its whole and summarizing the book's first 2 chapters, the prologue and chapter 1, Hey Shay. So, once again, this is the last chance for you to leave this video right now before I start talking about Pathfinder's Quest. Okay, so now, as time goes on, I will be summarizing these chapters in future videos and trying to review what they mean. I may not include everything from a specific chapter just because the lore from that chapter, some of the lore from that chapter, may land itself in a video dedicated entirely to that lore. I may or may not be referring to Titanfall 2 and the Titanfall juicy lore that may be dealing with the timeline here. And I also want to put out a little disclaimer that I do not own the rights to Pathfinder's Quest. I only purchased the book. Dark Horse Comics created the book, and the writers of Apex brought it to life. Manny Hagopian, I think I pronounced that right, Tom Casiello, and Ashley Reed. I do not own exclusive rights to this book. However, Section 107 of the Copyright Act states that I may do a review/critique of the book, and it won't be violating copyright law with respect to the boundaries of fair usage. I am simply reviewing the book and its parts, not making an attempt to infringe on the copyrighted material. Any piece of the book shown or discussed in this video by me is with the sole intentions of reviewing the book and giving an opinion on it. In hopes to make this more convincing, I will minimize how many pages actually make their way into this video form. Video form, image form, whatever you want to call it. If you want to look at the book yourself, if you want to get the book yourself, you can buy it off of Amazon, or you can go to Dark Horse Comics website. Some in-person stores may also have the version of the book available, assuming that they can do so within legal rights, meaning that they have the right to sell the book and then they're not illegally doing it. So that's kind of my disclaimer for this video. Sorry for making it so long, but now that I got that out of the way, hopefully I won't get sued for reviewing this book. And, yeah, I guess the only thing to do here is to get into the prologue, just like that. Okay, so now that we have all the disclaimers and all the warning labels and everything out of the way, we can finally get into the video, which is covering the prologue of Pathfinder's Quest, and it may dabble a little bit into Chapter 1. It all depends on how long this goes. Listen, guys, I've been editing this thing for 3 weeks. I've been scripting it for 3 weeks. It's a lot of work, okay? So we need to understand that the book takes place shortly after Season 7, but before Season 8. This gives us a time frame of when this book happens. So, first of all, sorry, Fuse and Mad Maggie and all that stuff has not happened in the book. It hasn't happened yet. That happens after the book happens, timeline-wise. It's kind of good to understand the timeline and what's going on as it plays into future events and all that good jazz. And it just gives you a perspective of, like, okay, when is this book? Time frames are always important. So the prologue is named Pathfinder's Memory Log, Day 0, indicating that the events that take place in the prologue, which by that I mean him recollecting the events in the prologue, happened the first day Pathfinder's rebooted. On Day 0, this is the day that Pathfinder rebooted in the abandoned warehouse, which is still his current home in the Apex timeline. It's also on Solus, within a reasonable distance from Mirage's bar. As we've seen in the Season 6 comics, we've seen that Mirage and Rayma, or Rampart, walked to Pathfinder's warehouse. So that indicates it's not far from Solus, or it's in Solus. This Day 0 is the day he woke up the warehouse. However, it's not Day 0 in the prologue. Remember, it's in between Season 7 and Season 8. This is Pathfinder going back through his memory logs, trying to get some clues and context. That way he knows what to do in the future when it comes in terms of looking for his creator and getting help. So this is just Pathfinder reflecting from Day 0. So, at the moment Pathfinder reflects his Day 0 memory log and prologue, it has been 33 years and 4 days since Day 0. Meaning that Day 0 took place 33 years and 4 days ago from the current time, which is in between Season 7 and Season 8. So Pathfinder woke up around, let's see, he woke up a while ago. I'm not gonna give exact time frames just because that comes into play later in chapter 1 when I get into like the Titanfall wars and stuff, which very, very, very confusing stuff. If I ask myself that, I would say that. So this tells us that Pathfinder's probably around 70 years old-ish, I think. Pathfinder has no recollection of what happened before he was rebooted. So Pathfinder hardly remembers anything that happened since he woke up at the abandoned warehouse. Remember, 33 years ago and 4 days since day 0, during the prologue, during the time that he is going through in the prologue, it has been 33 years and 4 days. At the current time of Apex, which is Season 8, it's obviously no longer 33 years and 44 days. It's been longer than that at that point. He originally thought his name was Marvin because of a note in the abandoned warehouse. However, he's a Marvin unit, not Marvin. Obviously, except he's, a special case. His journey began, in quotations, elsewhere from the abandoned warehouse. During these years, Pathfinder's location records suggest that he traveled everywhere between Gaia to Solus for a number of years. As in Gaia to Solus, not meaning directly, but as in, like, the planets in between that range are, like, has been possible transportation that Pathfinder has been to. Meaning that, like, Pathfinder could have been there, or he could have been in the planets in between. It just means that Pathfinder has been into a lot of places in those 33 years. He got to planet by planet by riding along freighter ships and transports, but was never questioned since people thought he was just a part of the machinery, being a Marvin and all that. He also never paid for passage. For one, he didn't have money, and for two, he was never asked about it. So, never paid. Pathfinder felt without a purpose until someone broke his leg in an attempt to steal it. Kind of funny. In order to get his leg fixed, he had to get a job. Unfortunately, that turned out a lot harder for Pathfinder than it would be for the others, as in, like, other people, or as in, like, any human being. And here is a screenshot of that. Once again, read the disclaimer. I do not own this book. I've only purchased a hard copy of it. All that good stuff. I'm not going to go through the disclaimer again. Here we have his, he, as in Pathfinder's, employee records. The logbox. Farmer, fired for not knowing how to farm. Teacher, fired for not knowing how to teach. Engineer, fired for knowing too much and putting every other employee out of a job. Marketing agent, fired for telling the truth. Corporate overlord, fired for making a joke. Coat rack, fired for moving. Secretary, fired for hanging up on important calls. Arms dealers, fired for calling everyone friend. Line cook, fired for setting the kitchen on fire. Fuel attendant, fired for setting the station on fire. Firefighter, fired for forgetting my ID. Door-to-door salesman, fired for not knocking. Used vehicle salesman, fired for answering too many questions. New vehicle salesman, fired for not answering enough questions. Beverage serviceman, fired for spilling hot drinks on customers. Masseur, fired for breaking a customer's bones. Pointer, fired for only drawing smiley faces. Painter, not pointer. Therapist, fired for being too optimistic. So as we can see, that this is just one part of the list. It goes on to another page, and I'll show an image here. We can see that Pathfinder's got a lot of failure here. This is to emphasize his role in humanity and that he does not fit like a normal human would. Pathfinder's a robot, and he can't do what standard Marvins could or other robots are programmed for. It's just simply not him. He just can't do it. He's got a different purpose. This is not his purpose. Essentially. Pathfinder may not view it this way, but it shows that he does not fit in here. And as we go to the next slide here, we can see that it is musician, fired for rocking too hard. Handyman, fired for getting stuck inside a customer's oven. Plumber, fired for turning a house into a boat. Poet, tired for not knowing how limericks work. Pilot, fired for landing upside down. Yeah, that's not very good. Weatherman, fired for predicting the weather. Ice cream service, fired for not knowing how the ice cream tasted. Window washer, fired for scaring too many people. Once again, this is a continuation stating that Pathfinder, he fails at these jobs because it's just not in him. He's just programming. He's not meant for these kind of tasks. Pathfinder is meant for something much greater, which is the entire purpose of this book. Finding out what his purpose is and why he can't do these things. What is his creator, who is his creator, and why was he created? This is all a foundation for that, which it plays into the book as it goes on. After Pathfinder's encounters with Victor Maldera, see the Fight Night story of the Outlands for more information, because that does a great job at explaining itself, and I don't want to dissect that too much because this video would be way too long. That's kind of another thing in itself in entirety. Pathfinder claims to have found a purpose after this story of the Outlands. Pathfinder knows he's made for something special, but what that great purpose was is just about unknown as his creator is. He has no clue what his purpose is, what he was created for, and who his creator is. Pathfinder has no reason as to why he never met his creator, but he is constantly guessing at it. He gives different reasons as opposed to just maybe something happened to the creator, maybe something happened to him. It's an ongoing situation where it shows this lostness in Pathfinder. He has no clue of anything. He's lost. And it just contributes to the ongoing story. The snark from people claiming he is a joy, in quotations, to be around is sarcasm for all kinds of people. It reinforces the fact that not many people like Pathfinder. And this is not anybody in general, this is just the specific, or not anybody specific, but it's in the general population. They do not like Pathfinder, giving snarky remarks, rude comments, sarcasm, stuff like that. It all just reinforces that people don't like Pathfinder. They don't like that he's a robot, and they don't, well, maybe not so much, but they don't like him because he's a robot, is what I should say. Or at least, they're not very welcoming to him, to say the least. Pathfinder's been looking for his creator ever since he rebooted in the warehouse, which is many, many years. He claims to have shouted down the streets of Sutamo, put his banners up on Pasame's capital city, which is Lifeline and Octane's homeworld, and even tried to gain the attention on the feed after learning that his creator may have frequented local taverns. Now this ties into Mirage and stuff like that. So once again, this is emphasizing that Pathfinder has traveled many places in his time that he's been alive, which, if I had to guess, this is something that someone else would be better at approximating with the timeline. I'm not the greatest with the timeline, but Pathfinder, as far as we know, he's somewhere between 70 to 30 years old, based off of the story of the Outlands and the information that we're given here. Pathfinder has traveled from planet to planet, far and wide, to try and find his creator, or to try to find answers for and about his creator. It led him to Solus, where he eventually met the lovely Mirage, who told him about the broadcasting in networks, and he suggested that he should broadcast himself through the Apex games so that it may be easier for his creator to notice him, or for his creator to find him, rather than him trying to find his creator. I mean, sure, he could do a mixture of both, but it's just a good idea. And this is what eventually gets Pathfinder into the games, along with Mirage, which ties into my theory that I believe that, I'm not going to go too much into this, but I believe that Wraith, Mirage, and Pathfinder joined the games about the same time, etc. Gets confusing. So, the two men from the bar, when I think after Mirage, it's somewhere around there. All we know is at the time that he was in the Paradise Lounge, there was two men that took advantage of Pathfinder, and his ambition to find his creator, overall naiveness, and tricked him into building a house. Mirage was the one to explain Pathfinder that they have never, ever planned on telling Pathfinder about his creator from the start. He was used, and that they probably didn't even know that answer to begin with. It's once again, it's showing humanity, as this book reflects on not just lore itself, but it's kind of got some overall themes here. It's throwing into, like, humanity and the, greed and abuse and exploitations and, stuff like that. Then Pathfinder says something that, once again, it's kind of a message to the reader, except it's viewed from Pathfinder, who has a somewhat childish, or a childlike state of mind. He said, "This made me express my sad face, ... ellipse. Why would people lie? It only creates sadness. And that lying sadness only works for so long." End quotation. This had actually had much more deeper meaning than the direct contextual purpose of it. So this is something that has more than its face value. It's also a message about how our society, in which people lie all the time, even though it brings pain and sorrow. It's all tied into self-interest and greed, and etc. Pathfinder is just explaining this, and once again, we gotta understand that Pathfinder isn't human. He doesn't understand how this works. He has a feeling of emotions, but he can't fully understand emotions. He can't fully understand people. Is something Pathfinder struggles with, which, I mean, we ourselves struggle with understanding people. for Christ's sake. I mean, you look at psychology, or sociology. We don't know everything. Most of it's mostly theories. We don't know. So how could we expect a robot programmed by humans to understand? Pathfinder, in fact, does have personality, which also means he has emotions. It's just that the emotions are extremely complex and difficult for him to understand. Like I said, once again, it's hard for us to understand. This can be shown in the Season 6 comics when Pathfinder goes to Rama, or Rampart, and asks her to teach him and show him how to cry. This is Pathfinder. He's very confused with emotions. He feels them and doesn't know how to express them, and he just wants to be human, in a way.
They're jumping in, Arx.
Let's see. I'm reading through my script here, and we can see that he calls Mirage, Elliot, from time to time, much like Wraith does. It compares Mirage to he even goes as far as to compare Mirage to Maldera. The Mirage's conversations were more than a minute long, and they were actually engaging, suggesting that Pathfinder was actually not cared about by people he interacted with. It was like I gotta go kind of thing. Like, they don't want to talk to him. They don't want to engage with Pathfinder. As opposed to Victor Maldera and Mirage being the only two people, which he pointed out here, as of the prologue, that actually wanted to engage with him since whenever these events took place. Suggesting that the conversation wasn't just some minor small talk or conversation they didn't want to be in. This could also imply that Victor and Maldera cared for Pathfinder to some degree, or they have some kind of emotional tie to him, or empathy or sympathy or whatever have you, some kind of feeling. The Maldera situation is a little bit more complex, though, as Maldera at the start didn't necessarily care for Pathfinder. He only wanted the evidence that was on Pathfinder's memory log against Alexander Knox, who we also know as Caustic. That changed shortly after Pathfinder was shot by the Syndicate mob and was dying. I'll use that term loosely since Pathfinder technically didn't die, and he, all that good stuff, but he took a fatal shot. Much kind of like in Cyberpunk, the newest Cyberpunk. I guess that's the best way to relate it. Anybody that spends a small amount of time with Path, anybody who gives that sacrifice to spend a small amount of time with Pathfinder, he will consider them as his friend, because they are sacrificing their time for him, even if it's practically infinitesimal. This adds to Pathfinder's personality. We see that Pathfinder is very humble and appreciative of the small things. He takes nothing for granted. Everything is measured and considered. Once again, it adds to Pathfinder's personality. Now, once again, this is a review of the chapter. This is me interpreting what happened, and I'm not going to exactly string theories, but this is important to understand that if we can understand Pathfinder's character better, then we can try to predict what happens in the future, and we can try to understand that, this is who Pathfinder is. And this right here, this small gratitude thing, it shows that Pathfinder was built with kindness in mind. This shows that the programming that they gave Pathfinder and the emotion that Pathfinder has. And this is why Pathfinder is the way he is in the current game. It's not that different. It is very, very similar. So the next point I have here is that in Mirage's case, Pathfinder viewed him as a friend because he took the time out of his day to tell him about the Apex games and that he could possibly find his creator that way. This also adds to Mirage's character. Well, actually, I mean Elliot, not Mirage. Mirage is a facade. Elliot is the person who cares. Explaining how this means he cares about a lot of other people too, even if he doesn't necessarily show it. Once again, emphasizing the whole Mirage facade thing that we all pretty much know well about at this point. We learned that Pathfinder has been in the Apex games for 4 years since the Prologue has occurred. Remember, the Prologue is reflecting in between Season 7 and Season 8. So, the Apex games have been going on for at least 4 years. This is good because now we kind of get a sense for, how long these legends have been together and how the relationships have been building. Once again, actually supporting some of the theories I have in the past involving Mirage and Wraith. But once again, I don't want to get too much in that because that's not the purpose of this video. This means that the games have been going on for possibly longer than 4 years. It doesn't mean that it has been 4 years exactly, but it's been around 4 years, maybe longer. Wraith may have joined the same time as Pathfinder Mirage. It's very, very, very likely that Pathfinder and Mirage joined at the same time. However, Wraith also could have possibly joined a little before them. It all depends on when the games exactly started and when she saw the Apex Games banner shortly after escaping the labs, back in the Story of the Outlands, where she grabs the cloth and wraps it around her as a scarf. So we go on and say that Mirage and Pathfinder. I'm going to assume, because this is very, very likely, that Mirage and Pathfinder joined about the same time. The quest takes place after Season 7 comics involving Pathfinder, Lifeline, Gibby, and Octane, which is, once again, important to note. This takes place after Season 7, including the Season 7 comics, but before Season 8. And it was all thanks to that Marvin unit in Season 7 comics, containing a fragment of his memory log, when it spoke to him. The Marvin really didn't speak to him, it was the audio log in the Marvin, or on the Marvin, that actually spoke to him. The audio log's missing pieces, but it did give Pathfinder clues on what to do and where to start on his quests.
Yeah, they do that a lot.
Okay, so here I'm going to show you a photo and try to interpret this a little bit. Once again, I want to reiterate the 4 years to see how Pathfinder here is speaking present day in the prologue, meaning that he's not reflecting on day 0 at that top blue paragraph. He's referring to present time as the time that the prologue occurred. It's been 4 years since I joined the Apex Games, and it's been very fun. I met a lot of great friends, but I still haven't found my creator. That is until recently, when I discovered an old deactivated Marvin tying into Season 7 comics. So once again, this emphasizes that as the time of the prologue occurs between Season 7 and Season 8, it has been 4 years since the Apex Games has taken place. Then, once again, once we tie in with the Marvin, we understand that the Marvin had an encrypted message. This message is then in a transcript box here in Pathfinder's Quest. It says, "This is Dr. Amelia Pet," and it's blanked out. We don't know what it is. "We have managed to blank, thanks to additional funding from Chevrex and blank. Last week, blank. Iris is officially blank. The event. We're starting blank. The future of the Outlands, blank. Alike and myself will blank. And our Marvin, comma, Pathfinder, I blank history." End of quotation, end of log. So here we can see that this is, in fact, the thing we were teased in the Story of the Outlands. The thing to understand here is that we go into something known as Chevrex, and if you didn't know, Chevrex is actually Lifeline's parents' company. It is funded and supported and owned and ran by Lifeline's parents. So we can see that Lifeline's parents is tied into the creation of Pathfinder. We can see that Lifeline's parents and Lifeline have a connection to Pathfinder. Now, what does this mean in the future? We don't know. We also know that Dr. Amelia Pa is very close to Paquette. Amelia is definitely French, and we see Alike down there, but we have no clue. Pathfinder here states that he does not know what it means or who it's from, so this emphasizes that... Sorry for the cut. I had to extend the time here. So, Pathfinder, once again, this shows that he's lost. This clip here, this little bit of information that Pathfinder received in Season 7 is the push that pushes him towards what happens in Pathfinder's Quest. So, this is the importance of the comics in Season 7. The Season 7 comics lead to this book, and then this book will lead to revealing secrets, to other legends, and it could possibly involve in future comics. So, once again, this confusion has boosted Pathfinder's ideas and the fact that he wanted to go and find his creator. His memory has been deterred, so not everything is there. Not all of his memory logs are there. Once again, he only contains the memories from when he woke up in the abandoned warehouse. So we get a clue box. Transmission clues. Chevrex. So he wants to find out what Chevrex is. However, we know that Chevrex is Lifeline's parents' company. The future of the Outlands. We don't know what that is. Dr. Amelia possibly Paquette. The event. We don't know what that is. Alakai. Don't know who that is. And Project Iris, which is something to involve with Pathfinder. And here it says, I guess it's my time to start the journey. Day 1, here we go. This will be fun. Now, where to start? Okay, so it's a little jumped around because when I go through and do this review, it's a mixture of things. So as I'm reading through the book, I'm interpreting every line, which isn't going to exactly be chronological or like cohesive. It's going to be a little broken up, and it's going to be jumped around because, like I said, I'm interpreting every line to line. And Pathfinder in the prologue jumps around from Valdera to Mirage to waking up in the abandoned warehouse. It's all over the place. So I apologize if this is confusing to you, but the like super summary of the summary is that we know that Pathfinder woke up 33 years ago in 4 days. 33 years and 4 days ago. That is when he woke up in the abandoned warehouse. We know that Pathfinder, he originally thought his name was Marvin. We know that Pathfinder has no idea who his creator is, although he does have a transcript box, which gives him some clues that Chevrex is involved. Project Iris has something to do with him. There's someone named Dr. Amelia, PA, and then we have Alakai, which we do not know of. And we know that there's some kind of event. We know that there's a lot to take into consideration here. We have the future of the Outlands. This is in quotation, meaning that there's something to consider here. This future of the Outlands. What is this future of the Outlands that this Dr. Amelia was talking about, right? So this is the push. This chapter is mostly the push, or the start of Pathfinder's push to find answers. We still don't get a whole lot about Pathfinder's quest in general, or what his creator is. We don't get a whole lot of that yet. This is just the introduction to it. However, we do get a lot of information about Pathfinder's time in between the games and the time he woke up in the warehouse. That he's traveling all over the place. Pathfinder was not just on Solus. Pathfinder was not in just one place. Pathfinder did, in fact, travel all over the place while during his travels. Maybe he doesn't realize this, but the reader can see the way Pathfinder was treated by humanity, and that Pathfinder was not treated well. That doesn't mean that he was treated like the absolute worst being in humanity has ever created, but we can see that Pathfinder's he's not looked well upon. And it goes against his extremely optimistic character. Now, of course, he maintains that optimism throughout the book, but it just goes against it. Once again, showing that people's disregard for Pathfinder and robots. The fact that they don't have a connection or an emotional relation with Pathfinder. This journey is very, very... There's still some strings in it, right? So it's not full and broad. We don't know exactly what happens, so it's very possible that we could learn about some events that took place. Maybe someone from Pathfinder's past that he doesn't remember exactly comes back and, talks about what Pathfinder's done. We don't know, right? So it still leads to expand. And we get to finally learn a little more about how Pathfinder thinks of Victor Maldera. Victor Maldera, which, once again, this is a very complex situation because it requires an interpretation of the story of the Outlands, which was quite a while ago now, and it would seem out of place to kind of just do that all of a sudden. So you can look up a video from someone else about the story of the Outlands and interpret it that way. But we learned that Pathfinder cares a lot about Maldera, although he has no idea where is Maldera, or at least he makes no mention of Maldera where he's at currently, so it's safe to assume that he has no idea where Maldera is, but he also doesn't suggest that Maldera is dead, so it's very possible that Victor Maldera, is still alive. And Pathfinder looks at Maldera much like he does Mirage, and we know that Mirage is cared a lot about Pathfinder. Mirage considers Pathfinder the annoying tin can robot, as he says sometimes, even though we know that Mirage cares about Pathfinder a lot. We know that Pathfinder refers to Mirage as his best friend all the time. That Mirage, and he constantly insists that, and you'll see even through the book that he calls Mirage his best friend. Don't want to get too much in there because that's spoilers and such, which I will get into reviewing throughout as I go. So we can see that Maldera is the closest person to Mirage, and not to Mirage, but in Pathfinder's eyes, the closest relationship Pathfinders have with someone like he has with Mirage would be Victor Maldera. This is because we can see the comparison he makes to Mirage. He compares him to Mirage. He says he's much like Mirage. When it comes to terms of friendship, that him and Maldera actually took their time out of the day to talk to him and give that sacrifice, right? So it shows that Maldera and Mirage, which once again, Maldera did not care for Pathfinder directly, only for the stuff that was on him against Alexander Knox, the incriminating evidence that Knox was still alive, and allowing him to pursue him. But he ended up caring for Pathfinder as he stopped and let Pathfinder see that transcript log before he died. Giving that sacrifices instead of rewinding back to Knox.
Are you kidding me?
suggesting a character change in Maldera as well.
Good building.
So this means that Pathfinder, he cared about Maldera a lot in the short time that he knew Maldera. I don't know if that means he cares for him as much as Mirage, or more than Mirage, or less than Mirage, but we know that Maldera is somewhere up there around Mirage's area when it comes in how Pathfinder feels about Maldera, much like he feels about Mirage. So that's important to note, is because they bring Maldera up in Pathfinder's close relationship with him, is it makes me wonder, like, is Maldera going to make a reappearance, and especially with the future caustic stuff that just came up? Yeah, I would argue that Maldera is. Now, however, that is an entirely different interpretation, and speaking of which will probably be my next video. I want to go into the caustic lore, even though it's a little late to do it. I want to predict about what happens, and especially with the Apex overtimes being announced, I'd love to try to deep dive into that. Well, probably trying to maintain, I don't know what my next video is going to be. It might be a caustic lore video, it might be another Pathfinder Quest video, it might be some highlights. I'm going to try uploading more, but remember that these videos take a long time to create. This one specifically took about 3 weeks of editing and scripting. It was very, very hard. I think I'm going to try refining. I think I'm going to summarize the entire chapter and then go through and summarize the summary and try to put it into a specific order. That way it makes more sense. Like I said, the Prologue is going to be a little more out of place and confusing than all the other chapters because it's an introduction. It's giving you some extra info that isn't exactly about the creators themselves. You're not learning anything that new other than the stuff that is irrelevant to finding his creator. For the most part, there is some relevancy here, but not a lot. So that's kind of all I got for now. This is the prologue. Like I said, this is not this is just a review. This is going over everything that was covered in the chapter and me doing some slight interpretation on what the words could mean. No exact theorizing or anything like that. These videos are mostly going to be for you guys to watch and, you know, watch Pathfinder's Quest to see and pull out the important information from it to learn about Pathfinder's character and his history, and as well as the other legends, too, as we get into their chapters, which the next one is Lifeline. So, like I said, kind of mumbo-jumbo, mixed around. I still got to figure out how to do these. This is the first time I've actually done something like this. I've always done lore videos, but I've never took this long to script and edit something that's so large to interpret. It's very difficult for me. So that's kind of all I got to say, other than hopefully I know what my next video is. I'm working on some stuff. I'm not sure yet. That's all I got to say. So thank you guys, and I hope I can see you all in my next video.
No, not at that moment.